Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Let's have the fun. Besides, what better way to start a podcast? And what gets you more energized than the simple...
Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. Dan, Blazers Outsider Dan.
Hey.
How you doing this week?
I'm doing good.
They
have new rock stars that have 300 milligrams of caffeine per can, so we'll see how it goes.
How many cups of coffee is 300 milliliters of
milligrams? Caffeine? I thought like
how many cups of coffee is that?
I think isn't 50 milligrams your average cup of coffee?
I have no idea, but you know what? You're going to need a lot of that. You're going to need a lot of that this fall, Dan, because you got a new added responsibility to your role as Blazers Outsider. So I know you've already had a lot of congratulations, but let me again extend my congratulations for you in your new role.
Thank you.
At NBC Sports. Super exciting that you're going to be on more often and before and after every game. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what the details are of what the Outsiders and just kind of like what game day is going to be like?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, because this is absolutely awesome. This is something I've been alluding to for the last, 3 months. It was so ridiculously hard for me to keep this under wraps because this is such a big move for me personally and professionally. So, but yeah, Joe, Shane, and I are going to move from just a half-hour show on Tuesdays and Thursdays through the summer to 82 games a year. So we'll start with an hour before tip-off. Joe, Shane, and I will have the pregame show, and that'll be probably a bit more like what you guys have seen from us, and that'll be a little bit more lighthearted, a lot more about it, engagement with fans via Facebook, Twitter, everything else. Like the show will change rapidly on the fly. For those that have watched already know that we don't really have, like we have a script, we have a show layout, but it evolves and changes pretty quickly when we find something we want to talk about. And I think that's going to hold much more steady for the pregame show. The postgame show is where things are going to be a little bit different for us. And that'll be on a half hour after Jordan Kent and Michael Holton wrap up with the Blazers broadcasting portion of it. And from there, it's going to be a little bit like what Talking Ball was, as far as like getting a little bit of sound from the locker room, but it's going to be much more direct and fan focused. I mean, Joshi and I, we're not a bunch of guys that are in the locker room all the time. We're fans first, and that's kind of the way that we're looking at this. We'll still be who we are. We'll still be objective. We'll still be critical when we need to be critical. But it's more about fun, and the analysis stuff will come. I mean, I think that's what I'm bringing to the group, if anything. And so, yeah, it's going to be a little bit different as far as how the game day itself lays out. So we'll be on an hour before and then a half hour after. And we'll have Dane Carbaugh, who folks at Blazers Edge are probably pretty familiar with, as well as Mike Richmond, formerly of the Oregonian, contributing analysis, write-ups, all that kind of stuff. And then I think Dane might even start doing some video work again, which anybody at Blazers Edge is familiar with. Was absolutely awesome. So with the expanded resources at NBC, I think that could be some really cool stuff coming out of that. And it's going to be specifically Blazer-focused, and I think that's awesome. And obviously the other big news is that Jamie Hudson is also moving up, and she will be much more Blazers-focused in the day-to-day stuff. And Jamie's worked her butt off, so to see her get some shine here is really awesome. I'm honestly heading into this year beyond like the personal promotion that we're getting, being able to work with Mike and Dane and Jamie, as long as Joe and Shane. I think it's going to be really, really cool going into this season.
So when does a Blazer outsider become an insider? Because it sounds like you're going to be awfully close. Where's the line? Like, how do you think about that?
And that's the thing is, I think I'm kind of on the line right now. It's something that we've talked about. The we I'm talking about is me and the executives. I'm about probably as close as it gets because I do kind of fall on the media side. I do have relationships with NBA personnel. So that's kind of, I think, walking that line while like also being able to be...
So Blazers outsiders and Dan.
Yeah, kind of.
You can be the outsider with an asterisk.
I never want to have an asterisk. Come on now. For everybody who knows me knows that I am a fan, but I think I've traded in my full fandom and subjectivity for objective fandom. And I think I've kind of been doing that for the last couple of years. And honestly, I think it works for TV. So, and I know that NBC is working on bringing in some other faces to make some guest appearances. So I think people out there will be pleasantly surprised with what happens going into next season.
You know what works on TV and video?
Not my face.
Workout videos.
Yes, those work pretty well.
The Portland Trailblazers point guard has the best workout video. Everybody can just stop making workout videos now. Damian Lillard has turned in the most impressive and the be-all and end-all workout video. I'm not sure if my favorite part about it was when he was trying to hit things with hockey sticks or the fact that he was wearing a cape the whole time. What was your favorite part of the great Damian Lillard workout video of 2018?
Remind me again, when is the only time ever in human history has a pool noodle not made things better? Like, you see pool noodle and you're just like, okay, we're about to have some fun. Like, I've never seen pool noodle and like, oh, this is going to be a crappy day. You know?
So in case anybody missed it, after some back and forth with some Twitter fans who were questioning whether or not Damian was really doing his workouts this summer, he turned in a video that was made in a gym which had the Laker logo all over it. So you need to explain that one to me.
Yeah, it's Steven Jackson. He's the former LA Gear shoe mogul. It's his house. So he has a replica Laker gym.
Okay.
I believe
so. He wasn't. I thought he was like maybe working out in Southern California. So he was just around.
Yeah, it's in Southern California, but it's not at the Laker facility. And I believe I saw in the video. I thought I saw one of Damian Lillard's handlers, who's also an LA local guy. So I assume that's what was going on there, but I'm not 100% positive.
Well, he had two guys in the video helping him out, throwing things at him, making hit things with a tennis racket as they were throwing him balls in order to try to lay him up and make it in the basket.
Do not forget the Nerf gun. The Nerf gun was on point. I think Damian Lillard was very wise to wear eye protection. Make sure, you know, dotting all the I's.
That was while he was doing the running in and out of the cones, right? And they were shooting at him with Nerf guns.
Yeah, he had a paintball mask with goggles on. I thought that was a nice touch.
I thought that video was just so funny, and it's just so lighthearted because things are just getting, as we get closer to the season starting, it's just getting ridiculous.
Yeah, no. The best part about it was that Dame didn't edit out the misses. Like, he missed horribly on two of the shots. I was like, did he perfect. That just adds to the gravitas of this, stupendous film endeavor. So yeah, no, it was. That whole thing was cool. I was like, this is what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, right? This whole idea of guys working out in the summer. Like, it was good to not see Nurkic all over Instagram. I mean, other than CJ appearing in off-season workout runs, stuff like that. Like, we haven't seen CJ put out a ton of his own videos and promote his own stuff. And the same thing from Dame. And I think this kind of goes back to that whole idea of, like, just shut up and let me put my work in. You want to see something here. Here's something for you to all take. And as people who want content all the time and to make this easier and better for us, I am all for it. I am absolutely 100% for the entirety of what Damian Lillard did.
Well, while he was doing that, CJ's been crying on the sidelines. Poor guy. He's really been through the ringer with his Browns. I'm not as tuned into football, so I kind of missed out on a lot of what he was sharing. So what's the latest from CJ reporting on the Browns?
Well, CJ continues to be a Browns fan. I think that's where it starts and ends.
And I believe LeBron is too.
Yeah, and Kyle
Kuzma tried to.
He hopped in the mentions, and I mean, The Browns may be the only sports franchise, save the Bills. I'm trying to think of any others that are more masochistic than Blazers fans. Browns, Bills.
I don't know that the Blazers fans are the only masochistic group in the NBA.
No, it's. I mean, if you really think about it, like as far as like the unlucky franchises. Yeah, are they unlucky? Or are they? No. Are they unlucky or are they just stupid? See, the self-inflicted. I mean,
yeah. That's unlucky in one kind of way, I guess.
Yeah, you're just short a few chromosomes. No big deal.
You have the bad luck to choose the wrong people to be in charge. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going into every season, you kind of know what to expect. She had a rough go. I will say this: if NFL Films wanted to do something cool, or NBA Films, is there an NBA Films, NBA TV, want to do something cool, mic these guys up off the court on their off days. Like me getting a side seat to CJ watching a Browns game would be incredibly entertaining. Watching a professional athlete, a guy who he says what, or talks about what fans should or shouldn't do. I would love to put every one of those guys in the position where they are a fan.
And everybody's watching them.
And everybody's watching them. Just so it just kind of, comes full circle and reminds everybody that everybody's human. Because to be honest, CJ's incredibly entertaining as a fan. Like he goes through the same ring of emotions that every Browns fan does. Anger, sadness, depression, mild anger, more sadness, and eventual full depression. So, I mean, I think it's been that wet.
It definitely
600 days.
Personalizes him a little bit because sometimes these guys are so, about all their excellence and everything they're doing to achieve the very highest level, and they're very serious about it, which is really great. But when you see them doing things like CJ does with the Browns, it does make them seem a little bit more like us and a little bit more like, oh yeah, just reminding us that they love things that don't always pan out too sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, everybody has their places that they come from, and it's kind of cool to be reminded of who these guys really are, because they are put up on a pedestal. They are looked at differently. They're analyzed differently because of what they can do within their profession, and that people forget a lot of times that they're human too. So, I mean, ultimately it's fun, but I'm dead serious. I would love to see the mic'd up version of NBA players off the court, doing stuff that they love.
Yeah, well, between LeBron starting a new series every other week, and CJ's already being penetrated into the media, I don't think we're really that far off, actually.
Yeah, no, seriously. I saw it on Twitter 5 minutes before we started recording. LeBron is announcing another series where he's it's a woman coach of a men's team in basketball. That dude has had this isn't even hyperbole. He's had 15 series. Well, no, he's had 15 series greenlit. It's absolutely insane. And this is the third or fourth one that's already going into production. It's this is what the dude moved to LA for, and it's now you see why. Everybody's well, you can do those things other places, but when it's in your backyard, it's a whole hell of a lot easier.
He can do it so efficiently. From LA.
I would love to see the analytics on that.
There's a player who may or may not be on the move. I mean, LeBron definitely moved, but Jimmy Butler is in the news these days, and I am just so confused about what is going on in Minnesota. I feel so terrible for my friends who are Minnesota fans, just going, what is happening? So the other day I went to go look up the Timberwolves to figure out who was on their roster, because I couldn't even remember anymore. So I went to go look them up in Google, and I typed in their name, and I called up the roster, and I was looking at it, and I was like, who are all these people? I don't even know who any of these people are. And I realized that I'd accidentally typed in Chicago Bulls. Without even thinking about it.
Because the TimberBulls are alive and well.
What is happening?
There's a bug out there that's like a parasite that like grows inside the body of another bug and eventually like takes over their brain. That's basically the Timberwolves. Like the Bulls.
Well, is this precedented in any other time? Like, did this happen in like the 60s with the Celtics
this
or whatever?
Happened just a few years ago. Doc Rivers was collecting former Celtics they were like, mint condition action figures. It was insane. It's like, and this isn't just like, unique to those guys. Neil O'Shea. Mm-hmm. Neil O'Shea has collected his guys that he's drafted.
He collects his guys. Yeah, but like Thibodeau's getting the whole band back together.
You know what though?
Around Cat.
They had success in Chicago, so he's bringing in familiar faces that were around when there was success. Like I don't know about you, like if I worked somewhere and I went somewhere and started up a new company and I needed help with something, am I going to go to the unknown or am I going to go to grab people that I know that I worked with at a time where I was successful?
I don't know, because if you do that, you're just working with the same people that you left to go do something else with. I think the reason you leave is to go do something else and, to like expand your horizons.
But did you leave because,
because they made you? That's a whole other thing, I guess.
Yeah, that. And did you leave because everybody else left?
Well, so does he do this because he thinks they're all going to fit well around Karl Anthony Towns?
Hell no.
So this makes no sense.
No, there is a legitimate beef, wedge, issue, problem, however you want to categorize it, between Karl Anthony Towns and the front office and basically everybody else on the Timberwolves.
So do you think they're going to squeeze out Karl Anthony Towns?
They are not squeezing out Cat, not as long as the current president owner are in place. Tibbs has basically been told, or has been told unequivocally, that if you try to trade Cat, it's your job. You're gone. So they're trying to find this place where you appease Jimmy, placate to ownership and Cat, while trying to mend the relationships across the board. Because we've talked about this before. Like there are a lot of reports out there, and I've heard stuff in the back channels that Jimmy and Cat don't get along, and we've seen it in the quotes before that Jimmy holds himself and his teammates to a standard of competition and work ethic that is second to none, and I've heard that Cat does not aspire to that level of work, and that has caused a serious problem between the two.
He's never going to listen to our podcast again.
Hey, this is just, it is what it is. I mean, this is not something that I've heard from like one person. This is something I've probably heard from about 20 people around the league. Whether or not it started from one person, it's kind of gone through. That's just that's the working hypothesis, so to speak. And on top of that, Andrew Wiggins is kind of in the same boat. At least that's how I
always forget about him.
Yeah, and even if it's not true, that's the belief that is being held by those around Butler. At least, again, this is what I've been told. So I don't know how you reconcile that. Like that's I don't think it's something you can just like, hey, I'm going to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm asking. Like, so the rumors are now that I think Woj tweeted it this morning that Jimmy Butler's going to sit down with ownership, or is it with Thibodeau? He was going to sit down with somebody and they're going to hash it out. And I just like had visions of like Damian Lillard sitting down and asking that Ed Davis stay forever and how that went. But like, I mean, what do you think they could possibly be talking about? It's either, Jimmy, where do you want to go? Is that what they're saying? Is that what it's like? Jimmy, I'm bringing your whole team. You're going to leave. All the rest of the guys are going to stay. And Cat, where would you like to go? Do you want to be somewhere warm, or do you, I mean, what other thing could they be possibly doing? I don't get it. If
I don't either.
Committed to keeping Cat.
You're just, I mean, I think it's not the same as Portland. But I think they're in a situation in Minnesota that mimics that of Portland, where you're in a place where you struggle to get free agents, you struggle to get top-end talent, you struggle to build upon a team. I mean, you think about the last couple of guys that have come through Minnesota, have any of them finished their career there? Have any of them gone on to become Minnesota lore? Remember, Kevin Garnett forced his way out. Kevin Love basically, in a sense, forced his way out. Andrew Wiggins took the money because he knew he wasn't going to get it anywhere else. Smart man, get that bag.
Yeah, he moved in. He's like, I'm staying here. He's got popcorn. He's just watching what's happening.
I bet you the Timberwolves are a little pissed about not trading him for Kyrie Irving now.
But with this turmoil, how do you think the Blazers, shape up compared to the Timberwolves? Do you think that the Blazers are, still, they're simply out talented with them having both Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns? They're just out talented. They're just going to always have a hard time with Minnesota. Or do you think there's enough dysfunction that, our guys who maybe don't have some of the high heights that they do, are still highly functional? At least they seem to be.
I mean, if Portland has anything working in their favor, it's that. I haven't heard anything negative save the Harkless stuff last year, since the Ray Felton, Jamal Crawford, Marcus Camby time period. The locker room with Dame is pretty damn good.
There was some people thought there were tensions between LaMarcus and Dame.
And that's granted there were tension, but I think it was more from LaMarcus towards Dame than I think it was Dame towards LaMarcus. And while that's not good, obviously, it's also not great either. So, but yeah.
So you don't know. I thought you were going to explain to me what was going on with Jimmy Butler, but you're just as puzzled.
No. I get what it is. I just don't know what the move here is. How do you placate him? How do you make him happy? You're not going to all of a sudden get Cat to figure it out. Are you just going to basically, it's Jimmy, we have enough talent. We're bringing in enough guys that, hey, we can make a real move if you're willing to not, eat Cat alive during the season. I don't know. What made Jimmy Butler good? What made him successful? What made him go from?
What you think that they might be trying to get Cat to hold on for another year, so then they can get somebody else in and re-sign Jimmy? Or
no,
okay.
Jimmy's got 1 year left.
Right. So
they're telling.
Are
Jimmy,
they working towards keeping him?
I don't know, but if you have to at least get through the year, because you're not going to get crap for him, and that leads me to the whole idea of course everybody's speculating about trading for Jimmy Butler. Yeah, would he make sense in Portland? Hell yeah. Would you have to give the farm for him under these circumstances? No.
Because the Timberwolves would not be in the position of power on this one. They would be we have this really nice asset, but what are you going to give us for it? Rather than,
I mean, there's a year left on this contract. There's no leverage there. It's. I mean, what do you go with? So.
Well, how much do you give up? Do you think? What would you what would you consider a reasonable? I would imagine they want a pick, and
do they
want young talent? I don't know. Do they want a pick? I think everybody wants a pick these days, but maybe they don't. I don't know what their situation is.
So money-wise, it's difficult to make this happen without including CJ. So let me pull it back up here because my tab crashed. So I believe when I looked at it last, CJ and Harkless for Jimmy and was it Jimmy and Dang? I believe is what it was. Yeah. So CJ and Harkless for Jimmy and Dang was something that worked there. Obviously, the problem with this is Jang has 3 years left on his contract. Harkless only has 2. But
yeah, that doesn't seem like a very exciting one. I mean,
no. The other part of this is though that Jimmy's contract is cheaper than CJ's, and it goes a year less. So it moves the money around, and if that was the case, then it makes things easier if Portland was going to reset. The other idea here is that you could do, I think it was Harkless, Aminu, was it Harkless, Aminu, and somebody else I was looking at it earlier, because like the cap space. Actually, no, Harkless and Aminu.
Wouldn't you?
Harkless, Aminu, and a pick works. I'm sorry, that was the one I was going for.
Harkless, Aminu, and a pick.
Yep.
That seems reasonable. I think.
I don't think it's great. You could go with Collins, you could go with Simons, you could throw other things in there. But what I'm saying is, as far as like how to make this work, it's not that hard. And I know before everybody's like, oh, you can't get Jimmy Butler for Harkless and Aminu a pick. You could if things go sideways. How many teams are out there? Like, what are the Lakers going to offer right now for Jimmy Butler? Do you think they're going to give up Kuzma or Ball or Ingram or Hart? No. They're not going to give up any of those young guys. And Minnesota's in such a place where if they keep him and it is toxic, there's no way in hell. Like, it is just... These locker rooms, when they get this bad, it can sometimes take years for it to recover. Like, you basically have to root all of it out. Like, think about that last year with Nate McMillan, when it was Felton and Crawford and Camby. Like, how just nasty all. Like, maybe people don't know how bad that was. Like, there was damn near a mutiny in that locker room. So for everybody just kind of just looking at that, like, it can take a long time before that locker room atmosphere comes back together. And we've heard about this stuff in Minnesota for the last couple of years, so it's not like it's anything surprising. But man, like, the value of Butler as far as like what he's actually worth on the floor versus what Minnesota actually has to work with because of all the extraneous stuff is pretty imbalanced.
So, I mean, what do you think the likelihood is the Jimmy Butler moves at all before the end of the year? Pretty high?
Before the end of the year? 70%.
Yeah. And before the season starts?
Depends on that meeting. Right now, I'd say 20-25%. Yeah, the other side of the coin. But if the meeting goes good, next to none, because Tibbs is the guy who's going to try to lock everything down heading into the season. If things go bad, then I think it skyrockets. I think it's if things go bad, he's basically on the block and they're taking calls right now. So.
And what would be bad? Like if you're a fly on the wall.
Tibbs is telling Jimmy, be patient with the kid. He doesn't understand it. He's always had the talent. He doesn't.
Wait, do you think Tibbs would ever actually do that? That doesn't sound very like Tibbsy.
Every coach in this league knows how to placate to their stars. That's why they have jobs. They know how to massage the ego of their guys. They know that's something I think is overlooked a ton of times. Like, you could be the best X's and O's guy in the world, but if you're crappy when it comes to managing these superstars' egos, you'll get eaten alive. And I mean, if you talk about like Mike Malone with the Nuggets, when he was with the Kings, there's a reason they called him the Boogie Whisperer. Like,
right.
He was
Boogie got along with him really well, didn't he? He liked him.
Exactly. Yeah, and like the like what you can do with a player, like how much better you can make him feel, how much more you can manage his emotions or help him control his emotions, or what he will or won't do in the public eye, via Twitter or leaking stuff to reporters. Like, if it's toxic, but you're not meeting their needs, or you're not, like, how many times have we heard something negative about Damian Lillard or Damian Lillard's camp?
Right, we don't.
Very, 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 very little. And that's because whether people agree with him or not, Stotts and Olshey have phenomenal relationships with Damian Lillard. They know how to address his needs. Whether or not they've actually addressed them, they know how to talk about them. You know what I mean? And they know how to make him happy. And I think Tibbs' job here is to try to find a way to make Jimmy happy, to get Jimmy to come back, and to get, on the other side of that, figure out a way to maybe get Cat motivated. If that really is the problem. Like, if that is a thing, like, is anybody really mad at Jimmy Butler if he's mad that Cat isn't willing to put in the superstar level work when he has that talent? You know what I mean?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah.
This is the part where I'm supposed to answer. Okay. Do I think, I don't know. There were so many hypotheticals wrapped up in that. But the thing about it is it's like coming down to training camp next week. Mm-hmm. And this team for so many years has been about ready to make a leap. And so I never know how to measure the Trailblazers against them. They're one of the hardest ones for me to expect how the Trailblazers are going to be able to do against them.
I mean, talent-wise on paper,
it just doesn't make it any easier.
On paper, you would say that the Timberwolves are better than the Blazers, right?
By looking, because they have Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins.
And Taj Gibson. I mean, Patton's hurt, so there's some upside or downside there or whatever. But yeah, the top end of their roster has
talent-wise,
talent.
Their top end is like higher up in the SI top 100 than Damian and CJR.
Yeah, you would agree with that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're operating on the same level there.
Yeah, raw talent. I mean,
yes.
I'm calling Cat raw because he has not yet probably reached his potential.
He's still a kid. That's the crazy thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for all the people out there who get on me or harp on me about how I'm not incredibly high on continuity or relationship or familiarity, this is where they have a point. The Blazers are what they are based on talent, but they are more about the sum of their parts probably than any other team in the league. Between them and Coach Stotts and how they operate, they probably get more out of what they are on a pure talent spectrum than almost any team in the league. And it's because
just in Stotts' ability to get them to everybody plays as in their best way possible.
Yes.
Well, and they've been doing the same schemes for 3 years now, so they have that. I mean, that probably helps a lot with that
continuity, and
his ability to get everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where the all you folks out there who believe that this is your time to shine, because this is where it comes out. If in a world where everything is equal, the teams that have the ability to have that relationship, to have that trust, and they don't even need to like each other. Like, there have been title teams that hated each other. But if they have the trust and respect of their teammates, what they can do with that core belief is significantly more than the team that just hates each other, has zero respect, and is completely and totally dysfunctional. Like, that's why I think a lot of these organizations that are around there,
and then they bring in a whole different crew the next year.
Yeah, that's why I think that some of these organizations that have been around for so long and have been so toxic for so long, why you see it continue, a la the Browns, the Kings, the Magic. Like, the one constant throughout the entirety of this stuff is typically from the top down. Like, if your franchise is continually screwing up, and it's a different general managers, different coaches, different scouts. Like, maybe the problem isn't there, but maybe something that's more inherent. Like, whether it's ownership or co-ownership or the board or whatever. Like, the choices that they are making that's coming down the list. So I think it's one of those things where it's just like, you have to wonder, like, where does one team start and another team stop when it comes to, like, how deep do you go in trying to make somebody else happy in a singular year, as opposed to worrying about the franchise going forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How far are they going to go to try to appease Jimmy Butler this year? Right.
Yeah, because if you go too far and you piss off Cat, now the guy who's the future face of your franchise going forward wants nothing to do with you, and you've just garnetted yourself.
You know what I think is really interesting about continuity is that everybody can use continuity as either a plus or a minus in terms of like creating the narrative. So like you have Golden State and they're all getting bored because, you know, they've been so excellent for so long. Steve Kerr doesn't know how he's possibly going to keep everybody engaged this year. Then we have Minnesota, who's trying to like bring back the whole older team so they can get back to, you know, who they all knew and how they all played together. Mm-hmm. And then you have Portland, who truly just doesn't change their roster. And then, you know, it's just, and then you have the question of like, what's a dynasty? Because like, can you have a dynasty if you don't have continuity? So if you want to build and have a dynasty, you have to have continuity so you can make it last as long as possible. So I don't know. I just think continuity is one of those things that you can come at it from a whole bunch of different angles.
No, it's a perfectly valid point, because it's one of those things where when you look at it, it can be like anything in politics. You know, it could be one of those things where you can use it however you want to in your hit piece.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you're ready to move on to a little FIBA basketball?
FIBA, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So I watched both games today that starred Portland Trailblazers, or featured Portland Trailblazers. Both of them were kind of the star.
Yeah, I was saying
today.
The Bosnia game was definitely starring Jusuf Nurkic.
Yeah. Yeah, Aminu is kind of the star of the team, but he's not always the flashiest player. Okay, so I'll mention the Aminu's game quickly. So Nigeria is now 9-0, I believe, in competition, and they have qualified now for the 2019 World Cup. And they were undefeated. And I remember reading just like a month ago an article about this team that basically they sent out 12 invites and they hoped everybody was going to come. Yeah, because they just didn't have a lot. And they came up. So Aminu was there, when they call him Aminu. So him and his brother Alade were both playing. And I've actually watched a couple of their games, and they weren't as exciting as the game that Nurkic played in, but one of my favorite parts happened during today games. And I was listening to the commentary, and they were talking about, you know, Aminu is just so in control. And I was like I looked up from what I was doing. I was like, what are you talking about? And what they meant was they were talking about that he, really was like kind of setting the tempo and the pace of the game. And just like he was kind of the person around which like everything was oriented. So that kind of control. But right after he said that, a moment later, Aminu like threw up a three that was like an air ball. And the commentator goes, "Well, that was unpleasant to watch."
It was like the deepest insight into the fan of a Portland Trailblazer right there. You're like, yay. Oh.
In the perfect Aminu just counter to that, just a few plays later, he was under the basket trying to get an offensive rebound, and you know it was bouncing around between him and a bunch of people. He finally came up with it, but it like somehow like bounced like off of him and was about ready to go out. So he dives for it. He saves it and somehow manages to do a behind the back bounce pass to his brother, who then, you know, gives it to the guy who's coming down the lane, who dishes it off to somebody who's coming in from the side, who scores. So it was like this total perfect Aminu chaos moment where it was just like, oh, this is just going to go so south. And he just pulled it off, and it ended up in a score. So that also might have been unpleasant to watch maybe for some people, but I thought it was great. It's just the kind of chaos that I love.
Al-Farouq Aminu is structured chaos. No, it's just...
Embrace it. Embrace it.
I like it when these games take place, because it allows players who... This is going to sound toxic. I don't care, but people think suck, to show out like on a national stage for their national team. And it shows you the stark difference between a player, you know, who quote unquote sucks in the NBA, and how ridiculously much better they are than everybody else in the world of the game. That's what I always love about these international competitions. Like you can see the level of
like Luol Deng in the Africa game, in the NBA Africa game. He went off. It was awesome.
Yeah, and you're like, that guy played 13 minutes the entire season for the Lakers. How the hell is that? Like, what? No, I mean, that to me is the really cool thing about this whole idea of this international competition that they brought about, and heading into 2019. But let's not bury the lead here. The big story here is Point Nurkic.
Okay, so I watched every minute of the game today. I didn't get any of his other games, and of everything that I observed, because you know that I am like a brand new, freshly minted Nurkic fan, having become late to the party, but I'm all in now that I'm here. Thank you for letting me in.
Welcome.
I think the important thing was he fouled out with 1 minute and 50 seconds left, and his team needed him, and he fouled out. So that is the bummer. That's the downer. So to recover from that, let me tell you about a lot of the good things that I saw from him. And he was pointing a lot. You know how much I love pointing. You know, these are players that he doesn't play with as much as the Blazers, obviously, so they have to communicate. So he was a willing and active participant in communicating. He even had this one play where he was on offense. He was going towards the basket, and he was like, he pointed at one of his teammates like he was going to throw it to him, and totally did it to fool the guy that was guarding him, and he totally fell for it.
Looked him off at the point.
I was like, that was awesome. I haven't seen that. So very little dunking. I don't even know if he had a dunk today. But I've decided you're going to love this because it makes no sense. And it's going to go against all of your sensibilities. So I can't wait to hear your reaction. I've decided I think I need to hate dunks so that I can be mad every time they happen. I think that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm just going to have to just flip around and just be like, you know what? I hate dunks. I don't even want to see them. And then that'll be good, because then I will trick myself into thinking that they're not good and we don't want them, because nobody was dunking in this game. Like I was, you know, it just wasn't the type of game that I was having. But no dunks aside, the one interesting thing is that he was playing for a lot of the game. He was playing alongside a big.
I just have to say, like, the look on my face right now is a lot like the look that Elon Musk had on Joe Rogan's podcast. Right now, just very blank.
Why is that?
That you have to hate dunks so that you can not enjoy them?
Well, because I love them so much, and they don't happen, and I get crushed every time they don't happen. So I need to just I just need to turn it around.
Never hate dunks. Dunks are wonderful. Like, I don't.
Dan,
like
the secret is I won't actually hate dunks. I'm just putting it out there into the universe. Don't worry.
No, don't try and trick the basketball gods like that. They'll take all your dunks away. They'll take all your Achilles's and snatch them up. The basketball gods are petty and spiteful. You can't do that to them.
More seriously, perhaps that's just not going to be his thing. Perhaps that's just not how guys who grew up in his country play. I mean, who can you think of who is a historical dunker from their region?
Vlade?
Was he a dunker?
Ish.
I can sure picture him flipping it up in my head.
A lot of good footwork. A lot of feet work in there was definitely prominent.
Yeah. Anyway, the other thing is that every time,
that's a really good point.
It was a close game, you know. Oh, you mean about them not really just dunking? Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of dunking.
Like, no, just like that region in general. Like, I'm trying to think of basketball players from the Balkan region who really dunk, and I'm just like, it's not like they don't, but you're right. We typically don't see it. They're not the whole idea that region's soft. I hate that narrative. That narrative's stupid.
Oh my God, I would never think that. Did you see their coach? I was so scared of their coach. Although he looked a little bit like Tom Peterson.
Yeah, no, he
like a really scary big Tom Peterson.
Yeah, no, like when I think of that region and like those type of players that come over there, I just think of like a million Nikola Pekoviches. Like a bunch of 6'11", 300-pound dudes with biceps the size of my head and Grim Reaper tattoos. Like, did they all
crush you?
Yeah, are they all former KGB agents? I'm not certain, but they look the part, which kind of conflicts totally with the whole idea of like not dunking. So yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to dig into that now because that's weird. Now that I think about it, like they really don't dunk all that much.
I mean, and it was a crowded game. It was like really crowded in the paint. So maybe that's just kind of, I just didn't see that the game was really.
He did put in some work in the post. It just wasn't dunk wise.
Yeah. It wasn't like he wasn't scoring and he was getting it in. He had one beautiful while he was falling out of bounds shot. Mm-hmm. It was behind the back that he flipped up and in as he was falling out of bounds. And I think that was when I decided I hated dunks. I was like, I don't want to see any dunks. I want him just making these. Well, I mean, just having the Manu Ginobili.
We did have full court Nurkic. The rebound behind the back dribble and then no look, flashy pass across the paint, to which CJ McCollum retweeted on Twitter and said, "Don't get any ideas, big fella." But you can see the comfort.
He did bring it up a couple of times.
Yeah, you could see the comfort with which he had the ball in his hand, and I like that. Like, I don't like guys who like look at the ball like ew. When it comes to dribbling, because Portland has had some of those guys where like you put the ball
like
in their
Ed
hands.
Davis was like, I'm not moving. I caught it, right? You come get it.
Yeah, that was still like that's the epitome of like as a big man, like no. It's like a cat like pushing the food away. Like, no, you come get this. I'm not dealing with this right now. No, it was definitely really cool to see Nurkic. And here's the other cool thing. What number is Yusuf Nurkic wearing?
A 0.
Weird. I wonder who he's doing that for. He
loves his Damian. It's so sweet.
Because I'm damn near certain that he was not number 0 the last time I saw him playing for Bosnia. I swear he was wearing 22. I don't know, but I think it's super cute that he was wearing a 0, and I think he thinks that he was the number 0 because he was taking threes. He took a couple threes, which did not go in, but then he took one of his signature like 6 inches inside the line long shots that did go in. Cash money. Is like, no, don't give him life. Or maybe that's his new thing. Instead of dunking practice, he can have 3-point shooting practice, and he can end up being dunks
a 3-point shooter.
Dunks and threes. That's that. I'm fine with that whole narrative.
I don't know. Anyway,
argue about big men shooting threes some more.
As somebody, I was trying to see if there were signs that pointed to a positive future, and I thought, except for like the big deal, like I said, was that he was out and the team was totally in the game, and I honestly had no idea that he had that many fouls. I wasn't even really paying attention. He was getting fouled a ton himself, and so I wasn't really keeping track of his fouls, and apparently he wasn't either. I don't know. I don't know if he didn't know he had that many or what.
He may not have J.R. Smith did.
Yeah, I don't know. And they it wasn't a super physical. I mean, it was physical and they were bumping a lot, but there weren't like a ton of like big deal fouls. But yeah, he was getting fouled a lot. He got to the line. Like he took like 15 free throws, I think. He got to the line a lot. So that's good to get to the line a lot. But yeah, all in all, it was a bummer that ultimately they did not win. It was 80-85. And the biggest problem for the Bosnian team was every time they got close, Thomas Satoransky came in and did something. That dude was definitely the best player on the court for the Czech Republic.
And he's been buried on the bench in Washington for the last few years. I've heard rumblings about how badly mismanaged he's been in Washington from some of the folks out there, and it's again kind of goes back to the whole point of like seeing these guys in a position where they're getting like the prime focus and they're getting minutes and they're getting the opportunity. You can see how well and how good they look.
Oh yeah, that guy's good. Yeah. And Musso is good too.
Yes, the Nets draft pick, Zanen Musa.
Yeah.
Now, the international game's growing. That's the other part of this I love seeing is that you get to see these guys get an opportunity to get exposure to the rest of the world. That is, of course, if you're into that whole ESPN Plus thing.
Well, 7-day free trial, which reminds me, after this is over, I need to go cancel my trial.
There you go.
But I watched it on that. But so my question though is, he was playing alongside another big, and one of the things that you wrote this week about possibly some of the lineups, and I was wondering what you thought about if Nurkic could successfully pair with like a big, as opposed to like what I'm calling like an Aminu big, who's like not super like physically big. He may be playing the four, but he's not like, a big dude. But this was like two big dudes playing together.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's hard to do the whole, Warriors have 5 superstar Hall of Famers on the court thing, and so most of the world's still trying to catch up to that, even outside the NBA. So the two traditional bigs thing, I think, is still pretty common outside the Warriors and the U.S. Olympic team.
You mean two bigs, like actual, like...
Yeah, I mean, traditional 4s and 5s.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
I'm thinking of like a Yusuf Nurkic, Myers Leonard lineup.
But yeah, I mean, shoot, 10 years ago, that was, pretty common.
So how do you think Nurkic would do in a situation like that?
I think, number one, it would force him to be much more physical. So I think he'd actually be okay. But I think, a guy like him, a guy like Joel Embiid, those kind of guys, Embiid's another one who can succeed in any, era. But I think back in the day, like those are the kind of guys that, would be manning the middle and be used to playing down in the post traditionally. The perfect example of the quasi-modern era is Tim Duncan and David Robinson. It's just two monstrous dudes.
But so how does it work with the Blazers personnel?
I don't think it would work well. I'm just saying that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I guess 15 years ago is probably the better number.
Teams used it all the time.
Yeah, I just started thinking about like having Myers and Nurkic on the floor at the same time, and I had a little spasm about spacing defensively. I was like, oh God, that's just with the way teams go with 4 out and 5 out. It's just stupid difficult to cover. Obviously a team like the Warriors is going to do it to you anyways. But imagine the team like let's take a look at the Pelicans. The Pelicans, would they put Anthony Davis at the center position and they run Mirotic out there with Miller and was it this year Elfrid Payton and insert shooting guard here? It's like you've got 5 guys out there who can shoot the ball, dribble, pass, whatever you want to do. Like asking Myers or Nurkic to try to cover that on the perimeter, that's not going to work. But in international play, where again outside the premier nations, you can get away with that stuff because, like you said, there's a lot of play going on inside, right? So you don't have to worry about necessarily covering out to a stretch 4 or a stretch 5 on the perimeter all game long.
Right, but you have to do that in the NBA. Yeah. So we have, Nurkic and Aminu playing together. Like Nurkic and the rubber band is kind of like what Aminu is because he's stretchy and he can run and move around. Who else compliments him? Because the thing, it seems like Collins is a different enough player that he's gonna they're gonna play like a whole different scheme while he's in. Or do you think that how do you think that will work with the second unit? Will they just play?
That's going to tie into what I just wrote about this past weekend, and that's how the rotations are going to play out. It's no secret that I don't think Zach Collins is ready to play center full time. Like if there's legit center on the floor for the opponent, Zach Collins should not be at the center position, not yet.
So is Nurkic playing 48 minutes?
No. No, Myers.
Myers is coming in. That's right.
I think if there's a team out there who they're trying to get Nurkic or some rest or he's in foul trouble, like a healthy Boogie or a Joel Embiid or one of those guys, like a no BS center, like a guy who physically would just eat Zach alive. Don't put him out there. Don't throw him to the Wolves. That's not the play. But
Myers can go in there and bang. He's got a big body to throw
Myers
around.
Is a big dude.
Yeah, and he's got 6 fouls.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the mentality that I think people should have, and I think that's the mentality that Myers should have going into that time period if it does happen as I think it will. But
actually, I was looking at the workout videos, and I think that is what not the workout videos, the photos from training camp from last week, and that kind of looks like what Myers is doing. Because when I saw, like, he was just like manhandling Collins, and I thought that's like the best thing for Collins. That's going to be so good for him to just have Myers beat up. Because remember how much, like, you know, him and Myers when he was younger used to go up against LaMarcus all day. So now he can go and he can, you know, do the same thing to Collins.
No, I mean, and for those who don't know, like, for all the stories and all the stuff I've ever heard about Myers in practice, is that Myers in practice is a complete and utter monster. And that only bodes well for Collins. I mean, realistically. But, like, going into the rotations this year, I fully expect that the starting lineup of Dame, CJ, Harkless, Aminu, Nurkic is going to be the primary. The question is who's going to be the first off the bench? And there's three candidates. There's Curry, there's Turner, there's Collins. Those are the three guys I think are the next in line. If CJ is the first one out again this season, or because it kind of vacillated between either Harkless or McCollum, depending on the lineup. But I think Curry is probably... In my opinion, Curry would be the best option as the first one off the bench because Portland's offense would suffer the least. Then you can bring Turner in secondary.
And he would still play shooting, right?
Yes.
Because Dame would still be in.
Yep. And if you bring in Turner after that, then you can have Dame and Curry working off 1 and 2 off the ball. That allows Collins to come in last. Allowing Nurkic to kind of get, because Nurkic is the kind I think plays the best when he gets lathered up, right? You let him kind of work into the flow of the game, kind of feel himself on both ends, offensively, defensively, bang
give him
around
a few
little
balls
bit.
To try.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you continue to let Nurkic get that whole quarter. Then you have either Collins come in for Aminu, or if the matchup dictates it, you can have Collins come in for Nurkic. I would try to stagger those minutes with Collins at the center position as least as possible because I think he's going to be the most effective at the 4. I know Dion O'Shea has said repeatedly that he's going to play inside, yada, yada, yada. I don't believe it. They may want to do that. They may try to do it. I don't think it's going to be effective. But
but I mean, he's the quickest of the bigs, isn't he? Like, wouldn't they want somebody who can cover that ground between the basket and the 3-point line?
Defensively, yeah, he's going to play. I think he's going to play the 4. Like that, I have no doubt about that. Offensively is what I'm talking about, like where they're talking about moving him closer to the rim, and I'm just like, if you want to do that, sure. But the way I would maximize that would be by putting Myers out there at the 5,
right, to clear some space.
Yeah, and again, if you do that, that also allows Zach Collins to do what I think he's best at as a defender, which is again play in space. Like people want to talk about, and you wrote about this, and we talked about this before. You posted it, the defensive field goal percentage that Nurkic posted as the rim defender, and how Collins looked significantly better than everybody else. That like he was number 1 depending on, or number 2 depending on like which filter you had it as. And I think the context that's necessary for that is that Collins was almost never the primary defender. He's coming over as the help, or he's sliding over as the weak side. So if the guys were going up against him, he was the first. He was very rarely the first. And if he was the first guy, more often than not, he was doing it against second units. So again, this is like there's stepping stones. Get a little bit better here, get a little bit better here, get a little bit better here. Just keep growing in that sense. And I think this offers the perfect way. Like give him 5-6 minutes at center if the matchup dictates, and then if he shows he's really got it, then make it happen. Otherwise, you've got Myers out there who physically can take the beating or give the beating, which is which is what I would like to see a lot more of. But I think that's probably the safest way to go right now. But you still have the wild cards of Jake Layman at the stretch 4, and if you want Collins at the 5, I mean that's a really long, lean lineup. I mean, you're not going to have anybody basically over 225 pounds out there. I mean, as far as like size-wise, that may be the lightest lineup in the league if you threw those guards out there. I mean, Evan Turner's vying for heaviest guy on the floor for the Blazers at that point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, it is wedding season, so ET may come into camp about,
That doesn't mean that other teams also don't have slight lineups. So
it would be very difficult for me to come up with a lineup that's realistic around the league that would weigh less than that lineup. So, I mean, seriously, you just think about like,
Collins, Layman.
We'll say Turner, Curry, and Dame. You could swap out Dame for CJ, and there's probably 5 to 10 pounds difference between Dame and CJ.
Yeah, but part of it is just because Layman is so skinny.
But again, so is Collins.
I mean, he's really skinny.
But so is Collins. That's what I mean. Like,
yeah, he's not as skinny as Layman.
It's close. Come on now.
Layman has like little ankles.
Yeah, he does. He's got those.
He's a slender bottom half.
He's got them basketball bird legs. It happens. Not everybody else can get the Yabusele bottom end treatment.
Do you see Swanigan during the rotation?
That's the wild card. Like, does Terry Stotts trust Myers Leonard enough to play him? If not, Caleb Swanigan's the only other guy in there with some beef. I mean, realistically, that's what's going to happen. The other thing here is I'm a Wade Baldwin guy. I loved Wade Baldwin the second they signed him. I heard nothing but glowing reviews about him in the locker room and how he was on the road, how he interacted with his teammates, his willingness to work, which is a big change of pace from what it was in Memphis, at least from what I had heard. And what he did in Summer League. He showed leadership. He showed the characteristics that made him a lottery pick 2 years ago. But, I mean, realistically, he's 8th, 9th, 10th. Like,
there's a lot of guards.
Yeah, and they paid Curry. And here's, like, I heard some people...
Don't forget about Stauskas.
Here's the thing. I don't think Stauskas is playing. Like, I think he's what Pat Connaughton was 2 years ago. I think he's
2 years ago.
Yeah, I think
they went out and made a deal right at the deadline, essentially, for him, so he wouldn't play.
Yeah, I don't. If he's gonna dress, sure.
Why do you think they did so soon?
I need to continue drinking this Rockstar. Yeah, that was one of the more questionable moves of the offseason. Let's put it that way.
It was just that it was so soon.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I was like, what okay, but I don't think he's a part of the rotation. Now, could he be if an injury happens or something along those lines? No. Because, well, I mean, I think you have Gary Trent Jr. in front of him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like we've gotten this far. We've talked about 9 deep.
And Simons.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about 9, 10 deep already, and we hadn't even really got to Trent yet. And I think Trent's the guy that coming out of camp is going to have people talking much the same way that Caleb Swanigan had people talking last year coming out of camp. And I bought into the Swanigan stuff, and they did end up starting him, which is what I figured they would do. I think that.
But what you didn't figure
was that he would fall off a Facebook cliff.
And Zach Collins would get all that playing time.
Well, did he get all the playing time, or did it just kind of fall in his lap?
I'm not sure that there's really a distinction. He got the playing time. It came to him, and he got it.
Yeah, because, I mean...
And that's not what you predicted.
No, but, I mean, again, the production that we got from Collins in the first couple months was...
You just have to have the last word. Just face it.
No, I just
have to have the last word on Collins every single time.
I strongly disagree with the idea that Collins did a whole lot to get anything, especially in the beginning of the season.
Why does it have to be that he did anything to get anything? I mean, why couldn't he have just been next man up?
But that's what I'm saying. Like going back to Caleb Swanigan, like him getting into the rotation this year, like I don't like foresee that happening. Like I don't think that even if Collins just was completely terrible, they're invested in Collins, and that's what I was getting to with Gary Trent Jr. I think he's going to be that guy where even if, let's say Harkless starts out subpar, I think that if they pulled him and they put Gary Trent Jr. in and he at least showed something, or maybe they don't show something. Maybe he's just what Harkless was, but he's younger and more efficient or more inexpensive, or they see
or
more,
he looks more malleable, like he'll be able to
something more
like
in the future,
reach a higher ceiling when a quicker.
Exactly. Then I think it much like Collins in that instance, they could be like, nah, screw it, Harkless, you're coming off the bench, or you're buried deeper on the bench, and Trent's going to get the Noah Vonleh treatment, or the more recent version, the Zach Collins treatment. Like, you're good. Here's your minutes. Here's your rotation. This is when you're going in. This is when you're coming out. Make something happen in that time period, or don't. But you need to show something.
I'm curious to see if we're going to have another rookie veteran pairing this year, like we did with Ed and Zach last season. I wonder if that would happen again.
If there was going to be one, I would take Trent and
Turner.
No, that was probably number 2, but I think Trent and CJ. Although CJ is kind of taking Simons. He's kind of taking Simons under his wing. So
yeah, this seems like a good time for CJ to start taking some guys under his wings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he probably hasn't paid attention to him before, but it just seems like a natural evolution of his own growth.
And that's the cool part about the training camp, like pictures and video and stuff like that comes out. You start seeing the veterans around the rookies, and like when you start going through everything, you start seeing the same veteran with the same rookie over and over and over again. You're like, yeah, they paired up. All right. It's like Hunger Games out there, because they're not only trying to help the young man, they're also making them their rook, which means they're getting them their bags, their food, their laundry, their car, whatever. So there are bonuses to being the mentor.
I could see CJ with Anthony and Turner with Trent.
Yeah, I honestly want to see.
Although I'm a little afraid of Turner having a rookie. That might be, maybe he has had him in the past. I mean, I think Turner could be a really good mentor, but you have to have the kind of rookie who can like swim on his own, who's not trying to figure things out at the same time, like a guy who's pretty well knows the ropes. Because I imagine Turner could really be a special kind of mentor. Where you would really,
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I would love to peek behind the curtain of Evan Turner.
I need you to come and, get me this ridiculous thing and pick it up and bring it to my house at 4:00 in the morning or whatever. just to keep him on his toes. Well, when is media day?
So media day is, so this will be announced on, or this podcast will come out tomorrow, Monday morning. It will be a week from Monday morning, September 24th. I will probably, most likely, almost certainly be there in one capacity or another.
As the insider outsider?
Yeah. It's doing things and stuff, mostly stuff. I've graduated past things.
Wow, that was fast. You were not in stuff for very long, but at least you did them first.
Yep.
That's good. I feel like that's progress, that you admit that there's stuff to do first before you go on to doing things. And then training camp starts, and the opening game is on 29th, or the opening preseason game is the 29th in Vancouver.
Tara, we're 2 weeks from basketball.
I know. Well, I watched basketball today. It felt so good to watch basketball, that people were actually trying.
Yeah.
It was fun. And actually also, there's in Portland, there's some good stuff going on. I went to the Thorns game this weekend where they qualified for the championship. I'm going to the championship. So I'm glad we have this. I watched the WNBA championship. That was really fun. So it hasn't been like there's been nothing, but I miss it when there's just like so much actual games that you can't even keep track of all of them. Like right now there's just so many like blog posts and Instagram posts, and that's it. And there's so many of them, but like I can't wait until there's actual basketball to watch.
We're watching replays from the 2006 regular season, like, oh yeah, no, this is good, and that's you're trying to tell yourself
this is just as good.
When in reality, like you get done, you look in the mirror, you've actually like peeled the skin off your face, and you're like, oh, that wasn't actually good. So can we get real basketball here, please? So
you know what I did the other day? I watched all of watched all of Nurkic's shot attempts for the whole season. I love doing that, but problem is it's kind of like in some ways I like I kind of want to like chop up a game and just watch it like that. Like I want to watch a game by just watching first. I'm going to watch all of Damian Lillard's shot attempts. Then I'm going to watch all of CJ's shot attempts. And then I'm going to watch like all of Nurkic's blocks and just like do it categorically and just watch the game that way.
Yeah, no. The Portland Trailblazers fans, they aren't masochistic at all, Tara.
I just don't think we're any more masochistic than other franchises as well. I just think there's plenty of other franchises that are where we are.
No,
I don't think that we're unique in where we are right now.
I'm gonna staunchly disagree with you. Also,
really,
you
think that Portland fans are the only people who are in a situation where they're feeling like, I don't know, just kind of in the middle, not really going high, not really going low. Yeah, like you think the Portland fans are the only ones feeling that. You think the people in Orlando or or Washington or I just think there's Atlanta. How do you think they're feeling right now?
They're
Charlotte,
young and rebuilding. Charlotte's just bad.
If you just ask their fan bases, I'm not sure. Like I think.
Atlanta's rebuilding.
From the outside in.
Atlanta got rid of everybody. Like, they took Collins. They just took Trae Young in the draft. Like, they're packaging that up as young and rebuilding. They're like the Phoenix Suns were like 3 years ago now.
Okay, so there's one franchise that is not like Portland. I don't think we're the only ones who feel this way. How about Minnesota? We spent like 20 minutes talking about Minnesota.
For them, they were building.
They don't know what to think.
But even then, though, like last year was the first time they were in the playoffs for 20 years. Like they're for them, it's exciting. It's something new.
Are they building towards something, or are they about ready to tear it all down?
I think the excitement of what it could be is still there. Like, do you feel like there's excitement right now around the Portland Trailblazers? Like real excitement, not the return of basketball, but like excitement for their outlook. Because I don't. I could be totally
just
wrong,
because
but I just don't feel it around the fan base right
you
now.
Don't feel it doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who feel it. But on the same, just because, we feel like, the Blazers are kind of like in this middle tier where they're just going to be for a while, it doesn't mean that we're the only fan base who feels that way.
Nah. I think you're just stuck on this. You want to find it, but you just want to get.
I think it's really, the more I talk to other fan bases, the more I realize that we're not unique in our pain. I mean, we might have a unique type of pain, but we're all confused or wanting more, or also sometimes feeling irrationally positive. We're all the same.
I haven't had that in a long time. So.
Yeah, well, when have you ever?
This is
honestly.
True. I'm dead inside. Well played. Touche.
I'm all on board Nurkic taking a big leap, and I'm on board one of our rookies having a really successful rookie campaign, and I'm also on board somebody giving Gary Payton and Gary Trent the idea that they need to have a podcast called Gary and Gary.
Yeah, Gary and Gary.
If you ever meet them, you need to tell them that.
Yeah.
And do whatever you can to help them make that happen.
I will do the ad reads for not free, but I will do them. All right, let's wrap this up, Tara. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at TCBBiggs, and you can also hear the Women's Hoops and Talks podcast to come out every other week in this very same podcast feed, and you can also subscribe to Hoops and Talks at Hoops and Talks on Twitter.
All right, folks, as always, you can find me on Twitter at DMarang, at DMARANG. Same thing with Instagram and everywhere else for your social media needs. And as was recently announced, you will find me on all game nights, all 82 games plus playoffs and other places in between on NBC Sports Northwest, pregame an hour before tip-off, and then usually about a half hour after the final horn on NBC Sports Northwest for an hour-long post-game. My weekly column also is popping up now on Saturday mornings, if you guys haven't noticed. So if you guys have questions, anybody out there has questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas, I'm always looking for new things to talk about. And if you have questions, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DMarang. It's the best way to do it. My DMs are open, or you can just tweet at me. For Bowen-Biggs, I am Danny Marang. Take care, I guess. 2 weeks till basketball. Sweet. Bye.
Yay.